Hey, everybody, you're listening to What Are You Doing in Denmark, the podcast that helps you make Denmark make sense. My name is Derek Hartman, and I've been living in Denmark since 2017. And one thing that I love making sense of is football in Denmark.
Woo!
And right now, we're really excited to be watching the Euros, and we have a special guest to talk to us about a fantastic moment in Danish history.
That's right.
And the history of the Euros. Mike Walsh, welcome back to What Are You Doing in Denmark? We know you're an OG.
That's right.
You've been here before. You were here in the beginning. And today, you're going to talk to us about a very special football moment for Denmark.
Absolutely. And this is a story that has been told many times. I think almost every Dane has to know the story of summer in 92. But it's time for our listeners to deep dive and understand what happened in probably the greatest sporting moment in Danish history. But maybe to step back. So we all know that Danes like to hate on Sweden, right?
Yeah, of course. That's part of the,
It's part of assimilating here, I think, is how it goes. But it's funny how so many of Denmark's greatest triumphs have happened on Swedish soil.
Okay, explain.
So let's go through. So Wikipedia tells me that Denmark has a 23-18 lead on wars with Sweden. Two of Denmark's Eurovision wins, the brothers Olsen, Emily de Forest, both happened in Sweden.
That's true.
Denmark's most recent World Handball Championship, 2023, happened in Sweden. And this moment that took place in Gothenburg on June 26, 1992, again, Denmark's victories in Sweden. Something about being in Sweden just brings the best out of the Danes.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that. Yeah, it must be the Swedes. It must be being in Sweden. Yeah.
It is. So I set the stage. So let's go back. We're in
the stage is Sweden.
The stage is Sweden.
Okay.
But to walk back, so in 92, so this is about the Danish football team.
Yes.
And
you keep talking about Sweden, which is, okay, I'll give you a chance. Yeah, please.
Okay, give me a chance.
Yeah.
So we're going to Sweden. It's more what it brings out. But this is actually an era that was a bit of a golden age for Danish football here. So in this period, they had world-class talent. They had Peter Schmeichel, who's actually Kasper Schmeichel's father, was in goal, one of the best goaltenders in the world.
Also a wall?
Also, he was definitely a wall in this tournament. You had the Laudrup brothers, so Michael and Brian, who are two of the best attacking midfielders in the world. So this was a good Danish side. They actually qualified for their first World Cup in 1986, and in this, they actually won their group. They finished ahead of West Germany, so pretty good when you're ahead of the Germans. But this is also an era where the Danes had a lot of near misses. So they crashed out of the World Cup in 1986. They lost in the knockout stage 5-1 to Spain. Qualified for the 1988 Euros, but then didn't win a single game. Crashed out in the group stage. They missed qualifying for the 1990 and 94 World Cups by a single point. And then during the 92 qualifications, it actually was even looking worse because they had not just the near misses on the field, but actually the locker room was falling apart as well.
Like physically, or you mean like...
No, emotionally. Yes.
Okay.
So of all this talent they had, the Laudrup brothers literally walked away from the team because they didn't like the strategy.
Wow.
So the team strategy was very defensive, built around a strong defense, and Schmeichel being a wall in goal.
Flat hierarchy.
Yes. And so their response to this was, we're out. Also, two other star players were dismissed for disciplinary reasons. So there's a lot of controversy happening with this team. And in the end, they finished again 1 point short.
Oof.
They missed qualifying by 1 point to Yugoslavia. And so once again, they're on the outside looking in, a near miss, this golden generation that just couldn't get through.
I see the stage is set. It's more than just Sweden. There's also just a lot of disappointment, heartache, and drama and trauma leading up to this moment in time.
Correct. And I got to be clear, too. This is an era. So today in the Euros, 24 teams make it. Out of 50 some odd that qualify.
So what was it like then?
So you had 33 teams fighting for exactly 7 spots.
Damn.
So you're fighting in this time where, Sweden's the host, they're automatically in. The other spots in the tournament were taken up by historic powers like England and France, upstarts like Scotland, the CIS. So this was where the Soviet Union was qualifying. This was the first tournament where the Commonwealth of Independent States, don't call it the Soviet Union, took that spot. Again,
this
they
is
were
like
good.
They had a very strange Olympic presence then too, right? Was it the unified team or something like that?
Yeah, the unified team.
Something like that. Yeah.
Because by this time...
This was a moment in history where there were a lot of new countries, a lot of special case teams,
exactly.
Right?
Because here's the thing.
You mentioned West Germany earlier, so I know that wasn't
correct. This is also West Germany was qualifying for the tournament, and then halfway through qualification, it just became Germany.
Okay.
So, like, qualification goes over a couple of years. A lot changed between 1990 and 92. No more Soviet Union, no more East and West Germany.
It seems like this locker room drama was really nothing compared to what was going on in Europe at the time. I mean, there's a lot of drama.
There's a lot, and actually, and this is where the real heart of the story begins.
That's why they were like, we're going to Sweden.
Exactly. We're going to Sweden. Everyone's peaceful in Sweden, neutrality. Everyone's happy here.
Have a little fika.
Exactly. Have a fika and calm down.
Yeah.
Well, it gets worse. Okay. So this was also the era of the Yugoslav wars. So I mentioned that Yugoslavia finished ahead of Denmark in the qualifying. Okay. So Yugoslavia was in the tournament. The tournament was supposed to start in early June. And just about a month and a half before that was when the siege of Sarajevo began. And in late May, Yugoslavia came under UN sanctions for the siege of Sarajevo. And part of that sanction was honored by FIFA and UEFA, the governing body for European football. And so at the end of May, Yugoslavia was banned from football competitions. The team was literally in Sweden competing or preparing for the competition and training when suddenly they got word that they were banned from the tournament and had to find flights back to Belgrade.
I'm not going, I mean, I agree with their decision, but it's, just thinking back to a time where the strong morals and ethics of FIFA.
Correct. And where they put the hammer down, and then you do have to feel bad for the players that were part of it. I mean, they'd gone through the qualification. This was a very good Yugoslav side as well.
And I'm sure at the time something to kind of bring the people together,
right? In a very difficult period, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was a shame because a lot of the players on this team, they'd be banned from several tournaments, and so they would miss an entire opportunity.
And in football, you don't typically have a long.
Correct.
As long a career, the biggest stars that we think of in football, are sort of the outliers. You don't typically have a 15, 20-year career.
No, exactly. And especially for countries, if you're not France and Germany, like qualifying for a tournament's difficult. Like you don't know how many qualifications you're going to get.
And it's interesting, too. I'm glad you brought up the fact that there were not as many teams playing in the actual tournament. Is that a change, probably a result of... Is that one of the positive benefits of capitalism now? We want more games, more advertising slots.
I mean, the tournament... So this was the last time the tournament was only 8 teams. It would expand to 16 teams in the following tournament that took place in 96. Today, it's 24 teams that compete. I mean, the World Cup has expanded as well from 24 to 32, and the next World Cup is going to be 48 teams. But again, there's 205, I think, FIFA members around the globe. There's 55, I think, UEFA members. So it makes sense to have the tournament bigger to let more teams in. And honestly, as fans of football, more football's fun.
So the sport's expanded, the fan base has expanded, but also the economic benefit of more games and teams.
Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah, we know it's
capitalism.
It's TV money.
Okay, but still, good for everybody. More people get to play.
Exactly. But to step back into 1992 again, this meant they had to find somebody else to play. And so UEFA decided that it would be Denmark that would replace Yugoslavia since they finished second in the qualifying group. Denmark basically, by default, moved up and got to play in the tournament.
So they earned the spot.
Exactly.
Through a war in the Balkans.
Unfortunately. Okay. So, and the story is often told here in Denmark, and in the movie,
gloss over the...
Basically, it makes it seem like the team had gone away for the summer, and they were all off fishing and away from each other. Exactly. But the reality is the team actually was planning to play several friendlies. They had a plan to play a friendly against the CIS team, partly because qualifying for the upcoming World Cup was going on. So the team wanted to play high-end competition. So it's not like they were taking players out of the pubs onto the field. Like they were fit and ready to play.
And what movie is it you referenced?
Summer in 92.
Okay.
So there's a movie that was made. It's kind of the Mighty Ducks, but for Danish football.
Oh, or like the Miracle on Ice, maybe.
Yeah, like Miracle on Miracle, same thing. Yeah. It's a famous movie that tells the story of the team in a Disneyfied way.
Okay. So it's a better story to make it seem like they were just plucked out of bed to go to.
Correct.
But in reality, they weren't that far away. They were already there.
And literally, they're playing in Sweden across us. And so it's not like it was a far trip to go. Right. And also by then, one of the Laudrup brothers did return to the team. Brian came back. So he decided to play again, realizing that he can be an offensive spark on an otherwise defensive team. He made his peace. His brother wouldn't come back for another couple of years. So I guess grudges last a bit.
I guess so. The drama.
So here they come. So the Danes get to come to the tournament. armed with their defensive-minded football and kind of a devil-may-care attitude. Interviews with players during and after the tournament kind of showed they went in there with nothing to lose. They basically say, we can crash out 5-0. Who cares?
We're not supposed to be here. Just being our presence is already a present, a gift that we didn't expect to get. I get that mindset.
Let's go have fun with it.
When you play with nothing to lose.
It's amazing how when you play with nothing to lose, it kind of gives you freedom. Yeah. Because you're not scared of failure. You're all about the potential of success.
Yeah.
So they went to the group play. They started with a goalless draw against England, where actually in many ways they're considered the better side. It was a very strong defensive performance there, belied by the scoreless goal line. They then played the host Sweden, where they lost 1-0, but again played strongly and had respectable football. And they were still alive for their last group stage game against France, but they needed a win against France to advance.
Oh.
And it was a back and forth match. Denmark scored early. There was an equalizer from France early in the second half. And then in the 78th minute, Lars Elstrup put the Danes ahead for good, and they were able to make it to the knockout round.
Okay.
So again, with nothing to lose, they happened to draw with England, a top team. They beat France, a top team, and they were able to make it to the knockout stage. It's just the final four to play in the semis of Euro 92, the farthest a Danish team had ever advanced in a major football competition.
Okay, and then also this is just for perspective also, like this is a team that, you would have thought maybe had peaked in the previous tournaments. We're missing the brother, we're missing other key players. They weren't even expecting to play. They're not practiced. They're just kind of even though, yes, they were already there, this was not their mindset. They were not, ice water in the veins going into the Euros. This was just like, meh. And they got all the way to the knockout round. Okay.
And I think something to realize, too, again, the story of Denmark in 92 is this, plucky underdogs that shouldn't be there. Again, it's a good team. And I think one of the things that helped the team as well is a number of the players actually had played their club football. A lot of them came up through Brøndby in the Danish Superliga, who had very good teams in especially the late 80s as well. They were competing in various club competitions and did well. So something to draw back on is while this team had an all-world goalkeeper, good scorers who played in top leagues in Europe as well, the core of the team knew each other. They came up through the youth system together, Brøndby together. So it's also a chance where, especially in these international competitions, sometimes it's the teams that can play together. Since you don't train for months and months like you do for your club, those are the teams that can do well in these competitions.
There's value in that, in knowing each other's strengths, knowing who you can. I mean, it's trust. It's just knowing where to put the ball, knowing the strategy, being on an even playing field with the people around you. That's interesting, and especially in the way that today is, where you look at the national teams, especially even Denmark's national team. Not everybody's playing in games together.
Sure,
even in the same leagues.
Exactly. People are all over the continent. Yeah. Like, how do you come together with just a 2-week training camp? Right. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult. So now Denmark's into the knockout stage, and you figure at this point, you know what? The dream may die. We made it this far. Well done, everyone. Because now, to get through, they have to start by playing against Holland. And this is the era of total football. This is a golden generation for the Dutch in this era. They're a team that had won the previous European Championship. This is a team loaded with stars. It is just wave after wave of offensive talent and ball possession and beautiful football. This is what Holland was at this time, and this is what Denmark had to go against.
Tulips and windmills and
Clogs. Marco van Basten and just amazing talent on this Dutch team. So, again, just like the French game, Denmark took an early lead, only to see Holland draw even. And then Denmark took another lead in the second half. And then you figure their hearts were broken when Holland scored in the 86th minute, 4 minutes away from the end of the game, to draw and force extra time. And this extra time, I mean, the Dutch were just bombarding Schmeichel. Schmeichel truly was a wall in this period where he had several really, really close and tough saves where the Dutch could have put the game away. But it went to penalty kicks. And in penalty kicks, every player made their shot. Denmark made a shot. Holland made a shot. Denmark made a shot. Holland made a shot. As often happens. And then probably one of the greatest Dutch players of all time, Marco van Basten, steps up to the spot. He aims for the right corner. Schmeichel saves.
Okay.
Schmeichel saves. Denmark makes all of their remaining shots, and then Denmark goes through to the final, defeating the defending European champions, Netherlands.
Wow. And what's the final like?
So the final, actually has a little bit less drama. So they go to Gothenburg to play against Germany. And
Okay,
again,
so we peaked against Holland.
I mean,
and then
the game that's epic is
climax
the
was-
semifinals. Again, it's kind of like Miracle, where like it's funny. For those who don't know, the Miracle on Ice, where the U.S. beat the Soviet Union, Olympics 1980,
height of the
Lake
Cold
Placid.
War.
So the game against the Soviet Union there, it wasn't the last game. It was they beat them in the next to last game, and then the U.S. had to go beat Finland to win the gold medal. Kind of the same thing here. The epic game against Holland, like this is the emotional one where you figure they've put everything on the field. How are they going to go against Germany? Again, this is the first time Germany's ever competed in a tournament as a unified team since before World War II. So, and they're the defending World Cup champions. This is the era of Jürgen Klinsmann. Like, you figure Germany is going to wipe the field. Instead, Denmark goes out, scores an early goal to go up 1-0. Germany, wave after wave, defensive football wins. Now, this is something where a lot of the football purists will say part of why Denmark won is because this was also an era where you could still, the defense could pass back to the goalkeeper and the goalkeeper could pick up the ball, something you can't do today. So there's a lot of stalling tactics where Denmark could slow the game down, where if they got possession in the back, they could pass it back to Schmeichel. Schmeichel could pick it up, bounce the ball a few times, kill some time, and then kick the ball forward. So this was a core part of Denmark's defensive strategy. But
so
again,
go up early, play
go
defense,
up early,
slow
play
the game
defense,
down,
slow the game
run
down,
the clock.
Okay. Again, both teams could do this.
Yeah.
It's not like
this wasn't
they were
an unfair
cheating.
advantage.
Correct.
Yeah.
I will say this is Denmark's performance in this probably helped push them to change the rules and say you can't do that anymore. But so Denmark goes up with an early goal, waves and waves of German attacks. Denmark is sitting back for the counter, and then in the 79th minute, Kim Vilfort made the second goal. Denmark goes up 2-0. Germans are deflated. The game ends. Denmark is champions of Europe. So here you go. This is the great story of the Danish dynamite, the summer of '92. We're
red,
these plucky,
we're white.
Exactly. We're Danish dynamite. We're red. We are right. We stand together, side by side. This is probably the highest moment of Danish football history, maybe Danish sporting history. Denmark, champions of Europe, 1992.
Wow, that's just beautiful. And the song was written then, before, after?
No, so the classic Violel, that comes from 1986, actually.
Oh, okay.
So it's before that. But yeah,
so that's just like when they thought they would need it, but then...
Yeah, but that was the beginning of this kind of era. This is the era that I think the clap hat also comes from 1986.
Oh,
but again, Denmark kind of came up. There was this late 80s, early 90s. This was an era of where Danish football came into the fore, probably for the first time ever. So this is where a lot of that pride in Danish football really took off.
If I had to pick a decade that the clap hat came out, I would have definitely picked the 1980s.
Oh yes, it is so 80s.
Yeah, so that really checks out.
Yeah.
And now I have the rest of the story, so
Exactly.
I think we all do. And Mike, that's just such a beautiful story. Really excited for the Euros right now and to see what the national team does. And if that's a lot to live up to, but
it's tough.
Now at least we are powered with the information. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining us today, letting us know about 1992, Denmark's national team, Danish dynamite, and when Denmark won the Euros.
When Denmark won the Euros. An amazing story.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. Hi.